The night in Manchester was glowing red, thick with the smell of smoke from flares, hanging heavy in the air like molten metal freshly poured from the forge. Over the shadowed sky of Old Trafford, dark and warlike, red devil flags flew under the stadium lights, casting shadows against a pale gray moon. Thousands of warriors clad in red had taken their positions. The battle had not yet begun, but the scent of victory was already in the air. A massive tifo banner was raised, revealing the faces of legends from the past, Sir Bobby Charlton, Peter Schmeichel, as if an ancient curse had been summoned upon any who dared trespass into the red stronghold. Lyon, the visitors from afar, stepped into the cauldron of Old Trafford with the calm of envoys seeking peace, not conquerors coming for war. They chose to sit deep, to wait, to observe how the Red Devils would wield their blade, but after only 10 beats of the drum, Mazraoui unleashed a missile from the right wing. Bruno signaled to Garnacho for a pullback. Ugarte followed through with a finish as cold as a blade driven straight into the heart of Lyon's defense. Old Trafford erupted. Lyon did not brace like a shield wall, they bowed their heads, seemingly awaiting the next strike. Diogo Dalot looked like a kamikaze warrior charging from the flank, sprinting without pause, slicing through the defensive lines. A cross like a sword slash tore through the air, and Antony finished it as if driving a sacred spear into the top corner. 2 strikes, 2 semi-final gates swung open, and United drowned in the ecstasy of triumph. But as the euphoria swelled, they grew overconfident. Their powerful strides turned into misplaced dances. Meanwhile, Lyon, seemingly bowed and broken, was quietly gathering energy beneath the silence. The first half closed like a triumphant symphony. The people of Manchester stood atop their fortress walls, feeling as though one foot was already planted in Bilbao. The visitors from France remained quiet, patient, as if signing a pact of surrender. But anyone who has lived inside football knows, the battlefield never runs dry of smoke. History hides its traps in the darkest corners of the night. Winds from Seville swept in, bringing with them the chill and smoke of flares. The sky over Manchester stayed gray, but every blade of grass at Old Trafford seemed to burn. Hours before kickoff, the area around the stadium had transformed into a blood-red festival. Supporters in number 8 and 18 jerseys, the numbers of legends, gathered and chanted the names of their warriors, as if preparing to send them off to war. The Europa League anthem played, but no one sang along. The entire crowd stood, shouting 3 words in unison: Manchester United, a sacred ritual carved into every heart. Lyon emerged from the tunnel not like footballers coming to play, but like a delegation walking into the domain of a wounded beast. Rabid, vengeful, ready to tear apart any who crossed its border. Warriors in white, were you ready to enter the land of fire and storm? That roar did not come from speakers. It came from the eyes, the footsteps, the frozen silence of United's players as they stepped onto the pitch, not smiling, not speaking. Coach Ruben Amorim stood firm on the sideline, like an ancient general preparing to unleash his forces into the land of life and death. Then, in the 10th minute, Garnacho whipped in a rapid cut and drilled a low cross that sliced Lyon's defense clean in half. Ugarte did not need a run-up. Just one stride, and the ball was driven into the net. 1-0. Old Trafford howled. Ugarte pounded his chest, eyes blazing as if to say, "Welcome to hell." And that was only the beginning. The Red Devils rode like knights on dragons. Lyon had no answer. Dalot charged up the flank as if he had no lungs. Bruno, commander of the midfield, waved his arms like a field general. Casemiro, the old wizard, delivered feathered flicks that left Lyon's entire system in disarray. The stats after 30 minutes told the story. Manchester United held 62% possession, fired off 8 shots, 4 of which forced goalkeeper Anthony Lopes to dive at full stretch. Then, in stoppage time of the first half, just when Lyon thought they had preserved a sliver of hope, came the killer blow. From a diagonal slash, Kobbie Mainoo split the lines with a through ball that bypassed the entire Lyon defense. Dalot arrived on cue, twisted past Nicolas Tagliafico, and finished at the near post off the woodwork and into the net, 2-0. It was a goal that shook Old Trafford, not because of its technique, but because of its timing. Perfectly executed, perfectly united. Dalot raised both arms to the sky like a warrior who had just felled a beast. Amorim clenched his assistant's hand and roared, "They cannot handle the pressure, keep pushing." Halftime arrived, both teams returned to the tunnel. Lyon had temporarily escaped the firestorm, but everyone knew the fury of Old Trafford had not cooled. The second half had barely begun. It seemed the fortress was firmly in United's control, but then a silent crack opened across their defensive wall. The blood-red moon looked like it had split in two, casting its glow across the pitch as Malik Fofana, a young warrior from Lyon, hair still carrying the heat of the forge, darted like an arrow down United's right flank. With one sudden feint, he froze Johnny Evans, and just like that, the nightmare was set in motion. From that opening, Lyon awakened like a wild beast rising from slumber. Tagliafico charged to meet the falling ball and struck with a shot like a trident piercing across Onana's waist. The sound of the ball hitting the net echoed like clashing steel, sharp, cold, and unmistakable. The crowd blinked, thinking it might be an illusion, but no, it was real. Quarantine Tolisso, the hero of the first half, turned into the villain as he received a red card and was sent off. With a numerical advantage, everyone believed Manchester United would take control and close it out. But the battlefield is no place for complacency. 10 Lion warriors dropped deep, tightened into a spearhead formation, and then suddenly countered like madmen. Ryan Cherki unleashed a strike like lightning tearing across the night sky. Alexandre Lacazette stood tall at the penalty spot and finished with cold precision. The fourth blow struck straight into the heart of Old Trafford. Red flags drooped. Streams of fans began to leave. The drums grew fainter. Despite having the extra man, the Red Devils fell into disarray, like an army without a banner. The battle anthem turned into a tragedy. It all collapsed from one slip. From pride that came too early. What seemed safe turned into disaster in the heart of Old Trafford, a ground where miracles were once written, now serving as the stage for a crushing defeat no one saw coming. In the 72nd minute, Alexandre Lacazette rose like a seasoned warrior and delivered a lethal header to make it 2-1. It was a goal that sent shockwaves through the stadium. Lyon began to rise, Manchester United began to wobble. Soon after came the second strike. Maxence Caqueret delivered a through ball like a cannon shot straight through the middle. It reached Tagliafico, the Argentine defender, who finished with icy calm. The ball rolled slowly but precisely into the net. The score was 2-2. A silent storm swept across Old Trafford. The life was drained from the stands. Supporters were left frozen, stunned. Just when hope seemed to run out, fate cracked open a beam of light. In the final minute of regulation time, Tolisso received a second yellow card for a blatant pull. Lyon was down to 10 men. Manchester United was granted 30 extra minutes with a man advantage. Fans began to believe in miracles again, to believe history might call their name once more. But football is often the cruelest mirror. The Red Devils, just beginning to rise again, were choked by a blow no one saw coming. Ryan Cherki, the rebellious artist of Lyon, received the ball outside the box, turned, shifted gently, then struck a shot that traced a thread across the sky. The ball curved like death itself, past Onana's reach. 3-2. Manchester United was now the one chasing. Before they could catch their breath, another thunderous blow landed. Luke Shaw slipped inside the penalty box, committing a critical foul. Lacazette stepped up, his gaze like a blade. Without hesitation, he struck with accuracy, cold as steel in the middle of a firestorm. 4-2. In less than 30 minutes, the team that once looked broken transformed into a furious army. Not because they were stronger, but because they fought like men with nothing left to lose. And Manchester United? They had numbers, but broke apart in chaos, despair, and ruin. Extra time felt like the final chapter of a doomed epic. That nightmare had already been written for teams that forget one simple truth: this is a battlefield. That night, Manchester United forgot. The stands of Old Trafford looked shattered, like a front line that had just lost its flag. Rows of red seats were left empty. Fans walked away in silence, heads down, eyes red, lips whispering quiet prayers. In that chaotic retreat, the broadcast camera locked onto a corner of the technical area where Ruben Amorim crouched like a last-line warrior. He pushed aside a water bottle, knelt over the tactics board, wiped sweat mixed with blood from his brow, and repositioned his pieces like Zhang Fei arranging his troops in the middle of an arrow storm. The second half of extra time still lay ahead, the pitch now soaked, stained with blood, heavy on the spirit. In the world of football managers, a single piece of chalk, one tactical move, can decide the fate of an entire war. And just as fans hesitated to leave, that young general cast his final die, placing the entire destiny of his team on a ball that had yet to roll. The score was 4-2, a result that went far beyond what Ruben Amorim had envisioned. Along the touchline, he paced back and forth, his face questioning his own plan. The scenario he had mapped out only reached 3-2. One goal was supposed to be enough, but football never follows the script. Even Ruben Amorim felt that a comeback now was almost beyond imagination. Yet he never lost hope. He trusted in his instructions, in the tactical shifts whispered during halftime, and above all, he trusted Casemiro, the seasoned captain, a symbol of resilience in the chaos of war. Amorim knew if anyone could bring his boldest ideas to life, it was Casemiro. So, in the chaos of Old Trafford right before the second half of extra time, what did Amorim do? He did not scream, he did not point wildly like he often did. He crouched low by the touchline while all eyes remained fixed on the cold scoreboard glowing above. From his pocket, he pulled out a tactics board, a small map in the midst of war, where every line, every arrow carried the weight of destiny. The man advantage had suddenly lost its meaning. The match was slipping away. Amorim understood clearly, if something did not change now, everything would collapse. And on that patch of grass, beneath thousands of lights and the roar of the crowd, he redrew, not just the formation, but the last bit of hope left for Manchester United. He called his players into a circle, forming a shield to block out the mounting pressure. No need to shout. His gaze, the way he bent over the pitch, made everyone fall silent. In his hands now was no longer a tactical diagram, it was a survival plan for the entire team. We need one goal, just one, and everything will turn. It was not a slogan, it was an order, a hammer smashing through the wall of despair. Amorim made immediate adjustments. Casemiro and Maguire, the twin shields of the defense, were pushed higher, advancing toward the penalty area like the final blades. Mason Mount no longer played the tempo, no longer distributed the ball. He had one mission: cross, cross, and cross into the 6-yard box. There was no time for elegant build-up. The strategy now was simple. Throw everything left at Lyon's goal. One goal and the stands would erupt. One goal and the heartbeat would change. One goal and the tide would turn. Amorim looked skyward, his eyes still and prayerful. The flames still smoldered atop the fortress, and though the red-clad warriors were battered, their spirit held firm. They stormed forward one last time. Time was no longer a clock. It was the blade of death, slicing through every painful beat of the Red Devil's heart. Arms dropped, eyes turned red beneath tattered flags and swirling wind. And in the moment that seemed the deepest pit of despair, Casemiro, the veteran general, raised his sword for one last charge. Forward! My blood for the light! No one knew what happened next. No soundtrack, no spotlight, just the referee's pointed finger. A decisive kick, and a silence torn apart by an uncontrollable roar. Emotion surged like electricity, rising from the pitch to the stands, from the eyes to the heart, turning rage into belief. No one could say what came next, but everyone knew momentum had shifted. A young player stepped up. No speech, no script, just a ball and a narrow shooting angle. In that moment, he did not kick the ball. He rewrote the broken rhythm of the match. The ball curled, the net rippled, the whole stadium rose. No one said a word, but everyone knew the game was not over. It had only just begun. And then, like a scene from a film, the final act arrived. Unexpected, unpredictable, a player once mocked stepped forward and now stood center stage. The ball soared. He rose high. Time froze. When the ball slammed into the corner of the net, no one stayed seated. The stadium exploded. Chaos shattered the silence, clearing the way for the greatest moment of all. The VAR board lit up with one sentence: goal confirmed. Like the closing line of a film, someone cried, Someone laughed, others just stood, unable to speak. They had not witnessed a match. They had witnessed a cinematic masterpiece. A tragedy written by Manchester United themselves. They fell into it, then dragged themselves back out. No one helped them, no one saved them. There was only the insane belief that as long as the lights stayed on and the crowd remained, no one was allowed to bring down the curtain. So they returned to the stage for an encore, better, bolder, wilder. It was a night where football stopped being football, it became theater, and Manchester United was the only performer who made the world believe that anything was possible, so long as you never leave the stage. A pass sliced through the mist. A body, awkward yet defiant, Harry Maguire, rose into the air like a war cry from an army rejecting its fate. The ball floated like a wild spirit, then struck deep into the corner of the net. The entire fortress trembled. Those who had seemed broken awakened, roaring in fury. There was no more strategy, no more instruction, only heart and a vow burning beneath the tattered moonlight of Old Trafford that night.